The IRD are owed a stack load of money and they're not happy about it, and they are out there in force trying to get it back into their bank account. In this podcast, we're going to go through some of the ways in which they are doing that and some of the success that they're having too. Phil, I hope you're squeaky clean, mate, because it looks like the auditors are out there chasing that cash.
Clean as a whistle, mate. I mean, we have to be being leading chartered accountants, upholding all of the ethics and morals that we've signed up to. We've got no other way. But it's fantastic to see that the $29 million that was allocated to Inland Revenue as additional funding, they have put to good use and turned that into an additional $859 million in tax revenue, because they've gone, you've done this wrong, you've done this wrong, you've done this wrong, you've got assets with equity in them, pay up.
Well, for some context, the IRD are probably owed around $10 billion, maybe even more. At June 2024, they released some data and basically it was around $8 billion. Now, it hasn't been updated for coming up nearly 9 months now. That is over 9 months, isn't it?
Yeah. Sloppy. Hey, IRD, you guys listening?
Yeah. So my suspicion is that that will be well over $10 billion. But I see what they've done recently is they have asked Baycorp, I believe, to go and start chasing up some of this debt. Now, it was sort of in the media where they were contracting Baycorp, but it doesn't say that on the website from this article.
No, it doesn't.
I think it's in a separate one, yeah. So we've worked successfully with Baycorp for a number of years, collecting student loans overseas. That's why we've selected them for this pilot. So they're doing a pilot where they are going out to customers who have a tax debt of less than $5,000. So there's 3,000 of those people. And Baycorp are going to be saying, hey, you owe the IRD money. And maybe Baycorp are scarier via perception than the Inland Revenue Department. But that's
fascinating,
That's just some small fish. Then, of course, the IRD are thinking, well, we need to get some of this bigger stuff in before we release the data and tell everybody that there's over $10 billion that's outstanding, and that's why we couldn't finish the Dunedin Hospital, have your kids fed in your schools, give the teachers a pay rise, etc., etc. So they're heading to the top. And one of the interesting ones that I spotted was the poor old property crew. People with plenty of property but owe the IRD plenty of money. They're saying, give us our cash back.
On the front door of their property.
Yeah, they're multiple
fitting.
properties.
What I found actually fascinating about this, to go back a few steps, is this is Inland Revenue's new computer system now paying dividends. They have invested heavily into an IT upgrade over the years, and they are able to scan and analyse data like they've never been able to before. And when they run their algorithms and calculations over the tax return data, and I think I read somewhere there was 3 million tax returns that they have analysed. That's a lot of data.
Yeah.
That's immediately going to throw up a lot of red flags of going, hey, look, you've got to bear in mind that there's the industry, or the BIC, your industry classification code, that then drives your ACC levies. And IRD have got visibility of that, so they can funnel all of the tax returns against the industry classifications, and then go, right, all of these construction companies, these ones are here are all broadland. I imagine it'll be like a bell curve distribution, and you'll have your outliers way out on either end. It's like, right, we're sending letters to these people, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yes, okay, yeah, we haven't done this right, or we've claimed these costs and done that, fess up and we'll pay. But then there's the 200, I think, that I read that IRD have gone, not only have we got all this data about tax returns, but we know you guys love property, and we've got information from, I think it's Lynn's Land Information, and go, we can then tie that back to ownership data on Lynn's records to tax return data, marry it all up and go, you've got debt of $100,000 or $1 million, and we can see that you've got these 5 properties that you've had for 10 years, they've doubled in value, they're going to have equity, we'll have a piece of that. Thank you very much.
And they're business owners as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully none of our clients got these letters, but they've been in touch with 200 business owners and told them, we know that you've got multiple properties, some in a company name, a trust, some personally. We believe they should be able to refinance to pay their debts to us, and told them to do exactly that. If they chose not to, we've been clear that our approach to them with that debt will escalate. These 200 people had $14 million of debt between them, but within a month, more than $10 million had been paid or put under an arrangement.
Well,
it's pretty effective action.
Yeah, it is. And it astounds me still that there's business owners out there that are not being responsible business owners of paying your tax on time. And yeah, I get that and we've covered it before with the likes of, okay, GST, some things might happen in your business where you've got to put it on an installment arrangement, or your income tax, something's happened and you haven't paid your provisional tax appropriately, and then you've got a big terminal tax bill. It creates cash flow challenges, and that can be managed with an installment arrangement through IRD. PAYE, as I always say, hands down the worst one to get behind in. But if you're constantly going for installment arrangement after installment arrangement and then racking up tax debt, as a business owner, you got to take a look at yourself and go, what am I doing wrong? Because there's something broken in your business to be able to not keep up with your tax commitments.
Yeah, and it's actually, I spoke about this recently at a conference I was speaking at. I said, when you get behind on your tax, I know that's scary, I know it's intimidating, and I know it can be embarrassing, but it's a really good sign that you need help and that something's broken, something's not working. And that is one of the clearest signs when you can't pay any form of tax, so I don't have the money to do that, to go, shit, I don't really know what's going on here. I'm going to ask for some help. And it can actually be the starting journey of fixing all of the issues in your business. The longer you leave it, the harder it is to tidy up that mess.
The bigger the hole gets, because if you are proactive and front-footed, so you've got a GST bill and it was a little bit more than you had anticipated, and you hadn't been listening to the What's Next podcast that we've been doing for years, saying put your cash in a separate bank account, use the GST tracker tools that we've suggested that drop out of zero to be able to go, right, what is my liability? Oh, I've got this big bill. Front-foot it and say, hey, look, I was only thinking I was going to have 20 grand to pay. My GST bill is 40. I can pay you 20. The other 20, can we pay that off? More often than not, I'd say probably 99% of the cases, IRD are going to say, yes, you can pay that off over an installment period, and it might be a matter of months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, whatever needs to work. IRD want to see you succeed as business owners. They're not out there to hurt you, provided you're proactive. It's where you've been really quite negligent as a business owner, because I believe business owners do have a responsibility. Ultimately, you're the intermediary for the government of going, we're adding value to the economy, we've got to tax that value, we've got to pass that on to the government to then be able to fund all of the stuff that you were talking about earlier. And there's a responsibility, a social responsibility, I guess, as a business owner to be able to do that. And where you don't, and then IRD start going, right, let's do the audit activity, I think good on them, because then it weeds out the businesses that are having an unfair advantage over the businesses that are doing it right, and they're operating in an economy where if they were doing everything correctly, they wouldn't survive.
It's interesting. I just received a message before from someone who's like, do you know about these things in crypto in America? I'm like, no, I don't. They're like, yeah, it's a way to get around tax here in New Zealand. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, that's not how the tax rules work. Yeah. You have to declare your taxable income that is worldwide. They're like, no, this has been around for years. I'm like, dude, yeah, okay, man, cool. But yeah, so I'll send that one to the 0800 IRD number. And
Yeah, God bless.
But, it's like people believe these things. And I reckon they're reaping what they've sowed a little bit, the IRD and the governments, because they've gone, okay, let's be pretty kind to everybody through the pandemic period. And now it's ballooned out of control. You can go and look at debt owed to the IRD. It's gone from about $4 billion in June 2020 through to September or June 2024. It's just about doubled. And now, and it's quite slow to happen. Then it wasn't really growing. It's gone boom, and it'll be higher than that again. And they're going to have to say, shit, we took our foot off the gas and we stopped, making these calls. And now they've got to hire Baycorp. They've got to do this stuff. But I think what people need to be aware of, like this crypto guy who's messaged me, you're not hidden. Like there's a camera everywhere in the world now. In New Zealand, and you think that you're all private and whatnot, and they're not going to catch this. If they want to go looking, they will go looking. And this is a good example where they go, well, these 200 business owners, we know they own property, companies, trusts, and personally. With the invention of AI, it's very easy to get multiple databases, ram them together, and with data analysts, and just go, well, hey, find out if they're a director and a shareholder of a company. Yes, they are. Okay, great. Let's find out what that's returned on its balance sheet. They've got that data. This will be happening at lightning speed, and it's only going to happen faster as well. So I think gone are the years of kind of like, oh, they'll never know. Because if they want to know,
they've got ways of finding out.
Yeah, they'll get the data.
Oh, and on your point of crypto, opens up the other avenue of going, we can do stuff overseas, not necessarily with crypto, because, it's overseas and IRD won't know about it. Well, what we've got to remember is IRD have got information sharing agreements with a number of countries overseas, and they can instantly be able to give your details to an overseas tax authority and say, hey, look, we've got Sally from accounts here. Here's her IRD number and address and all of her details in New Zealand. Can you match her up in your system and give us what you got? And boom, all the stuff that you thought was hidden now isn't, because you've just tried to be cute and it's going to cost you. What I would say is if you're a business owner and you've received a letter from IRD that says, hey, look, we want a review, be proactive. Don't answer it on your own. Seek your accountant's advice. It might be something to do with an income tax return or a GST return, but I'd encourage you to read the letter, pause, not freak out, and ask for help. Get the support and be prepared to pay for it to help get a resolution to it, because the worst thing that you can do is just go, oh, it's junk mail from the IRD, I'll ignore it. They send you another reminder, you ignore it, and then they've only got so much patience. And then that review where they've kind of gone, hey, look, we just want to look under the hood and see what you're doing to make sure it's all kosher and you're doing the right stuff. And that's typically all it is. And they might discover that you've done something wrong and you've got a little bit of extra tax to pay. So be it. The worst thing is you do what these 200 business owners have done that have got these properties and it's gone to an audit.
Yeah.
And it's forced them to go, hey, look, there's $14 million of tax here across 200 people. Pay up. You don't want to get to that situation. You want your relationship with the IRD. It's kind of like with the police. You want to have a, driving offence, parking ticket, maybe another driving one. Otherwise, it's pretty low-hanging stuff. You don't want to have your rap sheet with the IRD of just late payer, wrong tax return, doesn't file. It's history, and then IRD are going to look at that and go, have really low degree of confidence in your ability as a business owner and as a debtor or creditor, whatever way you're going to look at it from what side of the fence, to be able to pay them, because they're looking at it from a business point of view. Do you have the ability to be able to pay us?
Yeah, and I guess I don't work at the IRD, I don't know, but I would suggest, much like normal business, if somebody builds a habit of not paying their tax on time, well then you build a system to go, oh, we need to keep an eye on that. So your leniency is probably going to decrease. Now, from these 3 million returns that they went through, led to 30,000 reviews of those returns. Then there were audits, screening, and voluntary disclosures, and all of that added together added $859 million to tax revenue. So that probably would have leaked through the system and not been paid. So if we get into a couple of the specifics that people might be interested in, crypto at a high level, they issued 160 warning letters advising customers to declare their income from crypto transactions, and they estimated that to be 2.7 million. Now, I believe, Phil, coming up, what the IRD are doing and what the government have put in place is basically all of the crypto providers, the New Zealand based, they have to do regular reporting to the IRD, and the IRD are allowed to push that offshore and ask for and use it for international sharing of data as well. So instead of going to Easy Crypto and saying, hey, we want this data, they're now required to regularly report, okay, who's buying, who's selling, etc. So they're going to have that data and people aren't even going to know.
Match it all up. What I found really encouraging was back at the top of the report where it's the first half of the financial year, July to December. So we're only talking 6 months. There's a lot of tax revenue in 6 months.
Yeah.
We go again for another 6 months. You'd want to hope that they go out and find more people and they potentially double that and go, well, through the audits of the 859 million of tax that they've added to revenue, 600 million of that was through audits. They're going to carry on with their audit activity. There might be another $500 or $600 million of tax revenue in the next 6 months. That's a lot of coin.
For sure. Like maybe they've gone 80-20 and they're just scratching the surface and it's only going to increase. And of course, they've got to look at child support. They've got to look, for the first time in 20 years, child support debt dropped to under $1 billion. Just a casual billy.
Casual billy, yeah.
The primary reason for that is IRD's ability to deduct payments through the PAYE system. Now, interestingly, on that, I had somebody from the IRD tell me this recently, mate. So you owe money to the IRD. Eventually, the IRD goes to the employer and says, hey, we want you to start taking this out of the employee's tax return. Then shit hits the fan. And the person from the IRD said, it's always funny, but it's not really funny, that as soon as that happens, the person who has their pay docked loses their mind and they cry, oh, I didn't know anything about this. No one's been in touch with me about this. And they say that they've normally sent 4 or 5 pieces of communication for no response and it gets completely ignored. And it's just the point that they don't realise that the IRD can do that. And so as soon as it starts happening, they're not going to own it and be like, yeah, I've been ignoring 4 or 5 of their letters. They're like, this is bullshit. You can't do this. They can't take money. That's an invasion of my privacy. I mean, really, they've gone, I'm going to ignore that. So there's so much of this stuff going on. 76% of child support assessments were paid on time, up from 5% at the same time in 2023, resulting in $182 million being passed on to the receiving carers. So the IRD is a lot broader than just kind of business tax and GST. They're facilitating a lot. And then you've got student loans.
Yeah, 100%. The one that jazzes me up a fair bit is the old hidden economy. And the Mr. C. Ash, where you've got the local tradie on Facebook going, hey, look, has anyone got some odd jobs that need doing? The IRD are on Facebook as well, would you believe? And that they can data match and go, who's this profile? We'll match it up with our records, happy days. But the paragraph here that is fascinating is we've opened audit cases in the construction sector. So if you're in the construction sector, you're probably thinking, oh, damn.
You'd know by now if they've
Yeah, with a current value of $2.3 million of discrepancies in tax assessed. So they've gone, well, you filed a tax return of X, and then we're seeing stuff that's showing that there's a variance here, hidden stuff, cash. A new selection of cases is now focusing on plasterers and painters.
Ooh.
Oh, there's cashies going on in that sector of the construction world. You'll be getting letters if you haven't already. Maybe watch out in your post box. There'll be a letter coming soon to you. Get your help from your accountant. And then they go on to say, we made 320 unannounced visits to independent liquor stores and around 450 vape stores.
Interesting,
wow.
yeah.
As all part of the hidden economy. And I mean, I guess when you're going and buying booze, I suspect, it's not something I do frequently, and I don't vape, so I'm only guessing that, it might be the kids with their pocket money from mum and dad, and they're handing over the $20 or whatever it is. I don't even know how much a vape costs. Maybe I'm a boomer in disguise. And they've now been pre-selected as being part of the hidden economy, the cash economy, where it's pretty easy from the business owner's perspective. We'll pay this in cash and we won't declare it. If you're paid in cash, you must bank it. If you don't bank it, you've got to let your accountant know so that it can be recorded. If you don't let your accountant know, you've got to know what you're doing in your accounting system, be it MYOB or Xero, to be able to record the income, pay the GST, and then make sure it flows through your P&L and is recorded as part of your taxable profit, and you pay income tax on it.
Interesting, eh? It is such a big space. And the other one that I find interesting is that they have said that they've started using data gathered from payment service providers to investigate businesses. Now, that might be because the payments data shows they're selling goods or services, so through some form of FPOS payment, Stripe maybe, whatever people are using, Shopify data, etc. But we're not receiving this in our GST returns. Or because the number of sales indicates they should be GST registered because they're turning over $60,000, but they're not registered. And they're getting that data, from the providers. Or because we can see big value sales, but they simply aren't on our records at all. So, if you're requesting data from Shopify, from Stripe, from Payments New Zealand, what's that other, there's so many of them, right? And you go like, oh, okay, you can filter it via that data. If I work at the IRD and I go, great, let's make sure it matches up with their general ledger report or their GST returns or GST report, that $8,000 sale's not in there. Please explain. Oh, no, that was, my mum came and she spent $8,000 in the store, but it was actually for a friend. That's all above board. It's through our drawing. No. You're going to have some good excuses.
It's a massive area of risk for people who are unaware, because these payment service providers, they're essentially a form of a bank account, and you can connect it to your accounting system. And the amount of clients that we see that don't, that then drives the leakage. And PayPal is one that I've seen where it's not in the Xero system. We're transacting on PayPal and the money sits in there and it doesn't get cleared out back to your main business account. So we've got no reconciliation of a payout from PayPal to your bank account to then record that as income. And the money in the PayPal account keeps building up. And what can you do with a PayPal account? Go and spend it on Amazon.
Yeah.
And what are we spending on Amazon? Personal stuff. So business owners are thinking, I can sell something on PayPal, collect the cash, leave it there, and then go and spend it personally. The IRD don't need to know about that because it's not coming into my business bank account. This is exactly what IRD are talking about with these payment services. The other ones could be Stripe, for example, where you're selling a product or a service online and you're linking the clearing payment out to a bank account that isn't your business bank account, thinking, oh yeah, I can sell all this stuff and I'll just bank it into my personal bank account and the IRD don't need to know about it.
Yeah.
Nah, it don't work that way. And IRD have outlined here pretty clearly with the activity that they're up to that they've got access to the payment service providers' data. And this is where they've got the technology, they've got the smart people to be able to get the data en masse, apply a sort and a filter, probably a giant Excel spreadsheet on one of those huge screens like what we've got, and gone, oh, hey, Luke, we can see what you're up to here, and then send you a letter.
Those 26 withdrawals at the TAB are not tax deductible. It's, if we think about it at a high level, as we move from a cash society to so many of these online transactions and whatnot, it's all leaving a trail of data.
Yeah.
Older business owners would be more familiar with cash transactions and maybe not kind of declaring things, but it's so easy to get caught out now because there's normally a data trail of what you've got going on. Or even when you think you're dealing it in cash, when you've got one business who's declaring their income or coding the expense, but then there's nothing on the other side, like it can pop up. Or, how did you pay for that thing in your business with cash? Like, where did the cash come from? Please explain. Like, how come 96% of businesses are using UDC Finance, but you brought your Ranger in cash?
Yeah.
Just tell us how it happened.
Yeah.
Okay. We just, So, I think people think that it's pretty easy to get away with this stuff. But like I say, my few years in auditing, when you start digging, it's very easy to wind things through things and go, there's a hole in this. And it's very clear when they can't explain it well.
Yeah. And I think a lot of business owners go, oh, well, it's just this little amount. Oh, and it's the IRD, and we want to get one over the IRD. And I get a sense that when you're in business, when you're paying tax and you're paying GST and income tax as compared to, say, an employee who's paying PAYE income tax, that's it, and it's done for them. They don't actually have to physically write out a check or make an electronic payment to the IRD every 2 months or at 3 installments of provisional tax. Like, there's some psychological pain there. Business owners then attach a value proposition to that of like, oh, I'm paying tax, but I'm not getting value for that tax pack because of whoever's in power at the moment. As a business owner, you've got to disconnect that because they're two separate things. We've got a responsibility as a business owner to pay our tax. The fact that there may or may not be value in that tax has got nothing to do with how we should be running our business.
Finally, on liquidations, from September to December in 2024, 164 companies were liquidated by the courts on application by the IRD. So they go to the court and they say, hey, basically, we want to liquidate that business. We need an order from them, and then it gets served to the business owner. Stop trading. You are not trading anymore. You're trading recklessly, etc. You can't afford to be doing this. Stop. And that was an increase of 84% over the same period from 2023. So they're going harder on liquidations. But as part of that, they then wrote off $83.9 million related to company liquidations. So they liquidate the company, but then they still lose because the money can't be paid, but they're trying to stop the rot. So there's $84 million that probably won't show up on the unpaid tax stats when they come out.
Yeah.
Because they'll go, well, we're never getting that, so therefore we've had to write it off. So what they actually impair or write off in terms of tax that was owed to them that they'll never receive is going to be fascinating to watch as well once they do it all. But they declared 26 people bankrupt in that time. And completed 7 prosecutions for tax evasion in that one quarter. Wow. Increasing enforcement activities will lead to a higher number of prosecutions over time. So they are out in force.
Yeah, they are, and I get a sense that the liquidations and prosecutions is the last piece of action that they take if they really need to be able to stop somebody that's really poor in business from carrying on. Because to go to put somebody in liquidation and bankrupt people and writing off nearly $84 million, you're like, well, to be taking this, we're not going to get collected that cash, as opposed to trying to work with someone and try and get paid the $84 over 2-5 years' time, whatever their time frame is, or encourage them to take a loan from the bank against their house to come up with the cash. So, it's unfortunate that they have to liquidate, and I suspect IRD will get some bad press for being the people that tip some of these companies over, but ultimately, they are doing it for the right reasons. And if we look at the other data, they're actually doing some really encouraging activity to get people square on their tax affairs and collecting the cash that is rightly owed to them and making sure it's paid over a period of time. And that's good for everybody.
Yeah, and it becomes unfair feeling for the business owners that are doing right and are paying their tax, etc. So you kind of need the idea at the other end to go, well, this isn't good enough. Let's stop letting your competitors win work from you when they're trading illegally, effectively.
Yep.
So there is actually a bit of a benefit to them doing this and cleaning up some of the riffraff that aren't playing by the rules whilst other people are. But fascinating, and I think it's an area that they're going to have to keep their foot on the gas on, because they've got to start cleaning up the mess. And I saw a Reserve Bank governor explaining how basically from the depth of a recession, or even like capping out interest rates at a top to then start coming down, there's normally a 5-year washout period on the other side of like failing businesses and whatnot to reset. So there's 5 years of this, and we're only really probably a year into it.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're going to, I think there's a good reminder that like a lot of these people have been getting away with it, and some of them you will be working directly with in business. So be careful, because if the IRD liquidate one of your connections or a supplier or a customer, etc., and all of a sudden you can't get your gear or you can't get your money from them, like you have to adapt as a business owner. So you could be thinking, right, we're doing all this work for this person. You don't realize underneath it they owe all this money to the IRD. They might be next on the hit list. Bang, they liquidate them. You're in the shit. You might not be getting paid if you're not a secured creditor.
So there you have it, business owners and people out at large out there. The IRD do have the funding, and they are busy, and they're making good use of it. So if you're doing the right thing, there's probably nothing that you need to worry about. But if they do contact you, don't ignore it and be proactive with it. And if you think you've ever done something that might come up in an audit, I would encourage you to go and seek the right advice to make your tax affairs right.